Kenmore City Council is now in session. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Culver.
Present.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Sassen.
Here.
Councilmember Shrebnick.
Here.
Councilmember Lutzis.
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane.
Here.
Mayor Herbig.
Here.
All present.
Next on our agenda is the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the city of Kenmore is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Soxsawattle, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land. Now, if you would all please stand and join me in the flag salute. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Unless there are any objections, the agenda will stand approved as published. Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. Brings us to the two proclamations we have this week. I'm going to start off with honoring Veterans Day. Whereas Veterans Day is a time to honor and pay tribute to all veterans, both living and past, for their service and dedication to the preservation of our nation's ideals, including liberty, justice, and democracy. And whereas the courage and selflessness displayed by veterans across every branch of the military continue to inspire future generations of Americans, reminding us of the true cost of freedom. And whereas generation after generation of people have sacrificed their lives to preserve the unique form of government dedicated to human rights and respect for the individual, and whereas the city of Kenmore joins the rest of the nation to express our profound gratitude to those who have worn uniforms and fought to protect our rights and freedoms. And whereas this month we hold all veterans in our hearts and minds while we commit to remembering contributions of those personally known and those we've never met. And whereas in honor of these dedicated individuals, we pledge continued defense of our nation so that their sacrifices will stand before the entire world as a tribute to the spirit and determination of people dedicated to the principles of freedom and democracy. Now, therefore, I, Nigel Herbig, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize November 11th, 2025 as Veterans Day throughout the City of Kenmore. We call upon the community to join in giving honor and appreciation to those who have served and show gratitude to veterans and their families. And next, Councilmember Shrebnick is going to read Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week proclamation.
Okay. Whereas Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week is an annual program where people come together across the country to bring attention to the problems of hunger and homelessness. And whereas no parent should have to send a child to school hungry, no baby should be without the comfort of the nourishment needed for mental and physical growth, and no elderly person's health should be jeopardized by a lack of appropriate food. And whereas the purpose of the proclamation is to bring awareness to the public about the many reasons people are hungry and homeless, including the shortage of affordable housing in our community and beyond, for very low income residents, and to encourage support for homeless assistance services providers, as well as community service opportunities for students and school service organizations. And whereas nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and other participating groups spend this week and the entire year providing education, services, fundraising, and attention to the struggles that hunger and homelessness bring. And whereas it is our goal to bring awareness and support solutions to improve the quality of life for all individuals so everyone may live safe and healthy lives within their communities. And whereas the City Council has committed its number 2 priority in 2025 to preserving and increasing the availability of all types of housing at all income levels, including the needs of people experiencing homelessness. Now therefore, I, Nigel Herbeck, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim November 16th through 22nd, 2025, to be Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week throughout the City of Kenmore.
And we'd like to invite Juliana Pooley on behalf of the North Urban Human Services Alliance to say a few words.
Thank you, Kenmore City Council. Thank you for this proclamation. Thank you for recognizing the widespread crisis, which is hunger and homelessness. As a board member of both Babies of Homelessness and the North Urban Human Services Alliance, and as a parent of children at Title I elementary school, I think about our hungry and homeless neighbors every single day. We know that across King County today, approximately 17,000 people experience homelessness on any given night, which is a 26% increase from 2022. In North King County specifically, that number is about 1,900, which is quite the jump from 2020 when we estimated about 300 people. Meanwhile, 1 in 6 Washington children are facing hunger, and some estimates say that up to 25% of King County children face food insecurity. And this food insecurity becomes even more widespread and pressing when our government shutdown and benefits are paused, as they are right now. 47% of the students at Kenmore Elementary, where my children attend, qualify for free or reduced price lunch. Children who are hungry are less likely to focus, learn, and are more likely to repeat a grade. And without stable housing, it is harder to maintain employment, sobriety, or engage in regular medical care. Hunger and homelessness weakens individual health, increases local emergency expenses, and weakens our communities. There are a lot of important discussions about the role of government, but I hope we can always take care of the most fundamental needs of our neighbors. Feeding the hungry, offering housing to neighbors of all ages, abilities, and incomes, and helping facilitate partnerships between our nonprofit and faith providers. The crisis of hunger and homelessness can hit any race, religion, age, gender, and family. And I hope we as a city can continue to prioritize this life-saving work. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you like to join us up here for a quick picture while we give you the proclamation? City Manager, where is the fun?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have 2 items for you this evening. One was our recent tree planting event held on Saturday, November 8th. It was a collaboration between the city and Snow King Watershed Council. The event proposed by the Climate Action Advisory Committee, who you'll be hearing from this evening. Tracy Baniszewski led the volunteers and approximately 50 people attended. Our volunteers came from all over, not just Kenmore, Mount Lake Terrace, Bothell, Lake Forest Park, to name a few. There were a lot of families, seniors, kids, and everyone in between. They planted 132 trees and ground cover plants, and it took them over 3 hours to do this work. The city looks forward to making this event a regular occurrence in the future. Thank you to our volunteers. The second fun event was the city's annual pumpkin decorating challenge. So every year our 8 departments go head to head in annual pumpkin decorating. This year's secret judge was a local Kenmore business, Rotech Automation and Engineering. Thank you to them for judging. So the order of the pictures, you saw the snowman and the Lorax. There's Pumpkin Spa Day, Darth Vader, a spider who trapped Barbie. I don't know if you can see that up top. Detained for questioning, Oktoberfest, and our winner was the ice cream cone. Unfortunately, the police's pumpkin was not found, as we believe it may have been detained for questioning. This year's winner was Community Development's ice cream cone, Trick or Sweet Creation.
It's always fun to, when I happen to be like meeting with you and I walk by there and I see all those pumpkins, it's always cracks me up. That brings us to public comments. We want to welcome folks to the council's meeting. We ask you to address your comments to the mayor and the council. Folks are going to get 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will call your name when it's your turn. Please state your name and city of residence and keep within the allotted time. To make every person feel welcome and safe here, we ask that folks refrain from booing, clapping, heckling, yelling, and other interruptions. And we ask, we want to thank folks for keeping their comments focused on city business. The meeting is recorded for transparency. And again, thank you for being here and for sharing your input respectfully. Clerk.
Tonight we have 5 on-site public comments in this order. David Dorian, Mariana LaSalle, Jim Myers, Elizabeth Mooney, and Danielle Olson.
David Dorian, a resident of Kenmore. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council members, as you recognize Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, I urge you to turn that into more than just lip service. As your proclamation notes, shortage of affordable housing in our community and beyond for very low-income residents is one of the key reasons that residents experience homelessness and hunger. You have a chance to start to address this next week when you review STEP recommendations from the STEP committee. You cannot pay lip service to the proclamation this week and then turn around and undermine it next week, just to pander to a section of our residents. I was sad that one of you decided to make the recent election a referendum on Plymouth housing. But since you opened that door, Councillor, that has given us data. As affordable housing advocates have suspected from the start, the opposition to Plymouth was not an overwhelming majority of our residents. It was, in fact, roughly a 50-50 split against and in favour. Some of you have expended so much effort since Plymouth on pandering to 150%, the more privileged tending 50%, who do tend to be better served by local government anyway, that we've forgot to handle the other 50% of residents who are extremely disappointed by your decision. In pandering to that one group, you've doubled down on the loss of trust with the other group, and that's compounding the error. So please don't make the same mistake again on STEP housing. At least 50% of us are looking at you and hoping that you'll use established best practices to make intelligent and compassionate decisions about STEP housing. You must resist the idea that all we should do is provide temporary shelters. Temporary shelters are important, but only providing them won't comply with the requirements of Washington state law. And it fundamentally goes against the proclamation today, which states that your number 2 priority is to preserve and increase the availability of housing at all income levels. Only a permanent home will stop someone from being homeless. The state, our county, and at least half of our residents expect us to do our part in providing those permanent homes. Remember the other 50%. Remember the younger generations who showed most dismay at your decision on Plymouth. Please don't undermine STEP. Embrace it via the recommendations of the majority of the committee that you selected. Thank you.
Good evening, Mariana LaSalle, Kenmore resident. So I'm here today to talk about parks, because like many residents, I love parks. And I love the opportunity that the process is offering to further that and further recreation. And I read the pros, and it looks like a magnificent list of beautiful things to have, to improvements of our current parks, but also new things to have in the city. But I also had a lot of trouble seeing the vision behind it. I didn't know if it was just trying to fill in the gaps that we think we are missing, or is it to cater some requests the city had from some specific groups in the city, or if it was really a comprehensive vision of what should our relation to parks be and how our residents can access them and integrate them in their daily life. I'll give just a couple of examples. The first one is the playgrounds. So in the capital improvements and the PROS, there are playgrounds in each and every park, almost. And it's not taking into account that a lot of housing developments, when they build all the houses, do include a little neighborhood park, playground. And so I think there's a needs assessment there and what the current situation is in Kenmore that is not taking into account things that are already existing, but that is not offered by the city, but by other, participants of the city. My second example is about the inclusion of the Climate Action Plan and the Urban Forestry Management Plan. So we had a citywide discussion about what should our tree cover be and what would be the most, the better ones so that everyone can benefit from our beautiful trees. And there's not even a mention of that goal in the PROS, although if we're building new parks, it's going to be integrated that this will go towards that goal of increasing our tree cover. So I think there needs to be added a lot of vision in that document so that it can really be useful to know how the parks are going to evolve in our city. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jim Myers. I'm a resident of Kenmore. And I just wanted to follow up 2 weeks ago, the last time I was here, there was a discussion on the Lake Point property and to just have a few thoughts about that. Lake Point is, of course, one of the last major pieces of property that is undeveloped on Lake Washington, and as such offers a very unique opportunity for the city. It's an environmentally important junction between the Sammamish River, it's not a slough, it's a river, and Lake Washington, an important salmon migratory corridor, and home, of course, to all manner of native species, eagles, beavers, etc. There's a lot of documentation out there. PERC as one group and the people that PERC has worked with have amassed a lot of that. We're sort of going through it now to try and provide some important details of the kinds of things that were dumped there, because I think that seems to be one of the major issues at hand, and we are certainly working to share all that with the City Council and staff. By way of a little bit of background, Lake Point wasn't there in the early 1900s. It was underwater. Only with the construction of the Chittenden locks and the draining of Lake Washington did it actually begin to come above water. And then it was filled with all kinds of organic material, trees, and some other strange things, some medical waste and some other things that are listed on the different inventories. But and I know some of the engineering reports have come. It's really not a great place to build something on sort of old lake bottom in terms of building larger buildings. So from an economic standpoint, that's actually probably good and bad for the city in that a lot of it really is best used as open space and parks and less so for larger buildings. So I think it's wise, the plans, that the city use its due diligence and test the site. I want to point out that there, and it was pointed out 2 weeks ago, that there is a consent decree. Department of Ecology has permission to test on site. They did not do that the last opportunity they had. They did not require testing, but I think the city should probably approach Department of Ecology to use that before the city even spends its own money, because there isn't another avenue. Thank you.
Hello, Elizabeth Mooney, citizen of Kenmore. Hi, council. And hi, Terry Gilgore. Sorry, I didn't pronounce it properly, but that's right, Kilgore. Thank you for having this opportunity to meet you, and welcome. And I look forward to getting meetings when you're free. Yeah, as I'm here to support what Jim Myers just was pointing out, because we were here 2 weeks ago, and you all were talking about Lake Point, and I know Mayor Herbig is eager, and, if something is healthy, then I think we're all for something healthy. But I think when we're looking for economic health, in my opinion, we want to put public health and safety ahead of money and commerce. And some of our friends in our organization, PERC, includes some folks that we've had here giving science talks. And so I'm hoping that this coming winter and spring that we start up the science lectures, because PERC is planning to give more education through community engagement. Thanks for these cool little cards that you put out. So, yes, totally into fun. Last year, we put salmon back into Chichatlo, which is the stream that will be daylighted at the old Jack in the Box. So super excited to talk about that with you and others, and at Streamfest, and just really thankful that Snow King planted trees. But most of all, I just want to emphasize that 2 weeks ago, it seemed like the message was, we, the city, are pushing forward on Lake Point, and we have spent so many years talking to ecology, trying to point out that we want to be prudent, and ecology just didn't quite have enough money. COVID hit it, and when we spoke with the director of the Model Toxics Control Act, they just, he's retired now. They didn't have money to hire them, but they were supposed to do 5-year tests. And I know that the owner passed away when Rob Carlindsey was here, and we didn't get that memorandum, or I forget what it was called. So why don't we just look forward to having people come in again, and we'll try to get a slot in here, and we'll have a community engagement and fun talk about environment and public health and safety and salmon and having fun. Thank you and welcome.
The next speaker was Danielle Olson.
Apologies, I wasn't intending to speak today. So this is about affordable housing, just to keep in mind. So if a person qualifies for SSI or SSDI, a person with a disability earns far less than 30% AMI. SSI is about $967 a month, and people are not allowed to have more than $2,000 in assets. Kenmore has many single-family homes that live like apartment buildings for people whose incomes are often under 40% AMI. They're usually on arterial roads. Kenmore has people in need of deeply affordable housing in all over the city. Most affordable housing in King County seems to be for people kind of earning between 30 and 50% AMI, or 60 to 80% AMI. This excludes a lot of people who qualify for disability, either medically or intellectually. So I'm just asking that if Kenmore gets another opportunity for affordable housing, especially deeply affordable housing, please keep in mind that these residents are hidden in plain sight all over the city, especially on major arterial roads and in their families' homes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have one online public comment. Shall we proceed?
Yeah, let's do that online comment and then we can circle back.
This is Brian Martin. Mr. Martin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hear you. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm a resident here in Kenmore and love living here. I have 2 points to make. I'll try to make them brief, but I think with enough information to make them make sense. They're both about transportation. The first one is I own a fully electric vehicle, but I don't have a garage. To get charging at home, I would have to spend a considerable amount of money, and the permitting would be complex. To put it simply, we need more level 3 charging stations. There is an EVgo that opened up at the Safeway parking lot a couple of weeks ago, which I'm very happy to report functions very well, and I'm glad to have it there. The one thing about EVgo is that in comparison to charging at home, it costs 4 times as much. In fact, the price of charging at EVgo is equivalent to purchasing gasoline at a typical station at local prices. On the other hand, in Bothell, near the Home Depot, they opened not terribly long ago a different charging station called EV Connect, and that costs 30% less than the EVgo. And so I would encourage the city to continue to support EV charging stations in the community and to consider less expensive options than some of the commercial options that are quite pricey. Second point, there's a light rail station in Shoreline, in fact, 2 that are within a reasonable distance of electric bikes, for example, or even regular biking if you're so inclined. But one thing I notice is that in Shoreline, they have, for example, access to Lime Bike, and they also have access to Lime Bike in Bothell and the city of Seattle. So we are essentially surrounded by cities with access to bike share. But Kenmore and the city of Lake Forest Park do not offer access to bike share. And so there's a discontinuity. If I were, say, for example, a student at the university in Bothell, I would not be able to take a bike share from there to the Shoreline station. I'd have to take a bus, essentially. What I'm asking is that you consider allowing access to Lime Bike or similar kinds of bike share and scooter shares in the city of Kenmore. And I'd love to know what your policy on this is. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, there is one more on-site public comment. Hastings.
Hi, my name is Lori Hastings. Hello, Council and Mayor. I am a mom of 3 small children, ages 5, 3, and 3. And the reason I'm here today is because I felt it was very important to bring this issue forward. Last Monday in Redmond, there were 2 gentlemen who had their car smashed in by ICE for the crime of having, of looking Hispanic. I am an American mutt, but I look Hispanic, and my twins look Hispanic. My oldest looks like his dad. He looks white. I am afraid to take my children to preschool because all over the country, kids have been snatched, parents have been snatched. I I came here today. Normally I'd be doing my, I'm going back to school. Normally I'd be doing homework, but I decided to come today to make sure that you guys are thinking about the 10.7% of your citizens who live in Kenmore, 2,520 souls as of 2023, who are living and working. Some of them are immigrants. A lot of them are probably like me, American born and raised. I could go to the grocery store and get looked at by the wrong person and get taken. Over 100 American citizens as of January, when the ICE raids started under this presidency, they were taken by ICE and detained, even with showing ID. So even having ID, whether driver's license or passport, has not been enough. And once you are within the system, which is designed for immigrants, not for US citizens, it is very hard to get out because, again, it is not designed for US citizens. So I wanted to bring that to the attention of the City Council of Kenmore to just ask you to think about what you can do for the safety of the people of color in your community during this rather terrifying time. Redmond is a stone's throw from Kenmore. They're coming. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, could we get your city of residence for the record?
Oh, Kenmore.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
That conclude public comment? All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no. All right, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. That brings us to our presentation, our Climate Action Advisory Committee presentation, introduced by our Climate Action Plan Program Manager, Nina Rasmussen, and presented by the Climate Action Advisory Committee members.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to have a couple of our members of the Climate Action Advisory Committee provide a quick update to you all. Since their creation in 2024, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to bring forward a little bit about their work and what they have planned for the future. So tonight here we have Chris Eastland and Mariana LaSalle, and they will be going through the update for you.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone here and online. Just want to say thanks for this opportunity to tell you about the work of the Climate Action Committee and what we've done up to this point and what we're going to be doing going forward.
So we started the group in 2024. At the time, we were 9 members. One participated in the early activities we had, but had to live his life further. So we're now 8, and you can see the name of the members here. We were selected by city staff because we all believe that climate action is one of the critical things that we have to address right now and in the future, and that we want to be involved in bringing the community, the whole community, into that climate action. We all bring knowledge and expertise and lived experience that is valuable as a community member to bring to city staff to implement the CAP, the Climate Action Plan. So we have a charter that says that we are an advisory group to the city manager on climate-related topics. We meet once a month, and what we actually do is work with staff on the climate action programs they're setting based on the Climate Action Plan. And we try to ensure that residents have a voice in shaping and overseeing what is happening with the concrete actions that the city is taking. It also means engaging in outreach and events and providing some public input as well.
All right, so this is some of the work that we've been doing. It's labeled as action items. You might want to say they're items of action. But the important thing here is that everything we do is very strongly anchored in the climate action plan. And so the 4 boxes here show some of the 4 of the areas that are principal parts of the climate action plan. So I'll just talk about a couple of the things in each of them. So buildings and energy are a crucial part of the climate action plan, and the big contributor to our greenhouse gas inventory. So in 2024, we held a heat pump seminar that was actually done by Neil Bavins, who's the fellow that moved out of the town, but he gave a really good presentation there. Transportation and land use at the farmers market, there was a bike clinic where people come and get their bikes tuned up. Under natural systems and water, the tree planting event, which we heard about, that happened just yesterday. Was a big success, and that was something that we came up with and really wanted to make sure that happened. And then under municipal operations, we did a very thorough review of the urban forestry management plan to give inputs to that, how that could be improved. The review of the electrical vehicle infrastructure plan. So Brian, that there is a plan to put more electric vehicle charging in Kenmore. We're all looking forward to seeing that happen.
And so as working together, we started trying to find a balance between all our enthusiasm and all the ideas we have from the climate action plan and the actual reality and the feasibility and the budget constraint and the staff constraint that the city has. And I think now we have a good idea of that balance. And through those discussions, we have a few opportunities that we've identified. Mostly that we really would like youth to be more involved. And when we mean youth, it means like, students of all ages and at their own level so that they can acquire the knowledge, bring their ideas, because they are the climate leaders of tomorrow. And also we identified very quickly that Kenmore is not, out of space. It's we have surrounding cities that are doing a similar work. So we are trying to build bridges with other cities and other climate action plan committees. Yeah.
All right, so just looking at what we're working on going forward, or where we want the committee to go. Next year, there's going to be an update for the climate action plan. That's something the council has been looking forward to, and so we want to help advise on that and what should go into it based on what we've seen. In terms of decision-making in the council and trying to make sure that there's visibility of all the climate impacts of every decision that's made, so that climate impacts are assessed and are at the table in all decision-making, they're present and visible. We have the opportunity, we have a lot of volunteers, we have some great staff, and how can we leverage those resources to increase the way that the public is able to give inputs and participate in what we're doing. And finally, for what I'm going to talk about anyway, the community resilience, really emphasizing that the reality is that things are happening, and yes, we can mitigate them, we can do all we can to reduce our contribution to climate impact, but we also have to think about adaptation. What are we going to do in the next big heat event? What are we going to do when there's the next wildfire comes through? So really thinking more about that.
In all of those we want to increase youth participation in all those activities, being the CAP update, being advising on the different topics. And also build on our successes. I mean, like the tree planting event, it was quite a success for the first time, and we want to build on that, continue the actions that are doing great to involve more people, but also explore a little bit also other actions in the at the same time. And as I was saying before, all of this trying to build bridges with other groups so that we're building a community, a large community in the climate action. Thank you for listening, and thank you for staff as well for helping us every month. They're doing an excellent job of keeping us on target and explaining you know, everything what's happening and what should be happening. And yeah, we couldn't do it without them.
All right, do we want to open it? Was there anything more, Nina, or should we open it to questions?
No, we're open to questions if you have any.
All right, great. Do we have any questions or comments? Councilmember Shebnick.
I'm so excited about this. Thank you for all you're doing, Nina, and the committee. I was there as, you know, so we were all together on Saturday, which was amazing. I think it was the biggest turnout we've had for an event like, you know, a Snow King event. I didn't actually even know that the idea stemmed from your group. So thank you for clarifying that. And my only thought is, it's not even a question, it's sort of an idea of, I really, really, really appreciate how you're thinking about synergies across cities in our region. So one thought on that is that if you really get going on that synergy, you know, it's possible to even think about sharing a paid resource like an outreach worker. The East Side cities are doing exactly that. So that's why I suggest that. And that can extend your reach for, you know, if you're all working on X issue, it can extend your reach a lot. And then the other thing is, when you do have an event like Saturday, get people's names. Ask them if they want to help with future projects or do they have ideas, you know, really, really leverage that. Thank you for all you're doing.
Well, thank you. And yeah, just make a comment. I mean, we know that Lake Forest Park has a similar group and we've met them. We've had meetings with them. And so we see them at the farmers market and talk to them. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for engagement there.
Councilor Marshall.
The tree inventory is something I'm very excited about, so I want to thank you guys for that. What do you see as some of the main uses you can put the tree inventory to when we get it done?
Well, there's, I mean, we talk about it in terms of the climate impact is where we come in. I mean, there's lots of co-benefits for having more trees, but certainly in terms of, you know, as the trees age and are able to sequester carbon better, that's a significant value. They can help reduce, you know, heat, you know, very, very intense heat areas, especially in this downtown area where things do tend to get a little hotter because there aren't many trees. So that's the big picture is, you know, to basically increase our tree canopy to help to reduce our greenhouse gas.
Can I add? I would also add that it is also critical for building resilience in the city because we are in flood hazard zone because of climate change. And tree roots are one of the best ways to hold to retain the soil and not have flooding when it's raining. It's one of the ways of, you know, managing wastewater, so.
Councilmember Lutzis.
Yeah, I first want to start by thanking you and the rest of the committee members for all of your time spent on this. This is, it's a tremendous value to the city to have your input and your insight and your dedicated focus on this. So we're, you know, I think I can speak on behalf a lot of us up here that we're very, very grateful to have you. So thank you. And I personally was excited to see the increase in participation, especially among youth in some of these. There are some very, very motivated youth in our community. And so I would love to maybe connect offline about how to support that and maybe work together on that. But in terms of just future goals in general, I'd love to support you however I can. I think this is all good work, and I want to see it continue to grow and progress and flourish. So you have certainly my support on these goals going forward and whatever you need. Thank you.
Councilmember Sassen.
A comment and a question. The comment is this, knowing several of you on the committee as I do, I can only imagine the ideas that are generated, and it's very energizing even to just think about that. So thank you for holding those things within the very reasonable constraints. My question is, as Brian Martin, our caller, mentioned, and as Chris referred to, want to talk just a little bit about our EV charging plans, because I recall that we had some funding to increase that. I wonder if Nina, you could speak to that?
Yes, we do have some funding, as was allocated through the special projects monies. So we are looking to formulate a work plan for that for this upcoming year. So that will be part of all of our work planning. You'll be hearing a little bit more about in January. But yes, we are very cognizant that that is a need within the community. And now we are just trying to bring that plan that we have developed and move it into implementation and make sure that we are doing that appropriately and prioritizing appropriately as well.
And just add a comment. I mean, the public charging is great, but as Brian said, it's expensive, right? It's a lot cheaper to be able to charge at home. But many people, especially living in multifamily homes, don't have that access. So that was something we talked about. We sent out a survey to multifamily home owners or property owners to see what kind of incentives would encourage them to offer more electric vehicle charging, for their tenants. And so that's something we want to keep pursuing because it could be a competitive advantage. It's something that could really benefit everyone. Working on that.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Culver.
Thank you. Do we have a timeline for bringing back exceptional trees? That was something we discussed a few months ago and heard the urban forestry management plan brought up tonight, heard the mention of downtown trees. Obviously, that's a huge community priority, and I want to make sure that we are keeping a bias toward action, not just being performative with things. So I guess I just throw it to my colleagues. Do we have a timeline for that?
I believe we're going to be talking about it sometime next year, but I don't know an exact date.
Copy. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank you for all of your work. I know it's not easy to volunteer for this sort of thing, but it is really helpful to us and to the community to have you out there doing this work. So thank you so much for all the work and time that you've put into this. And thank you, Nina. Appreciate it. All right. That brings us to the first of 3 public hearings that we have. Our first one will be on proposed ordinance number 250635, our mid-biennial amendments to the 25-26 biennial budget and salary plan for 2026, presented by Finance and Administration Director Melinda Morrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I am here to talk about the mid-biennial budget amendments that I'm bringing forward today. As you know from the past, right button, this is necessary to have this review according to the RCW. So we amend any any numbers changing due to economic conditions, any work programs and priorities that may be changed during the year, during the biennium, as well as the CIP update that was already approved last month. That is embedded in this amendment packet as well. So the first, this first slide talks about overall the impact of these amendments to the general fund budget. So just talking about general funds, there's a recommended revenue increase of 1.5 million. And that will have a net impact, you will see on the next slide, of $511,000 increase after you deduct an increase in expenditures. So 1.5 million in revenue increases are part of this amendment, and the large increases include increases to building permits and plan review fees. This is due to development revenue being higher than what we anticipate. We usually take our best guess, but we don't know how quickly these projects are going to happen and how quickly it will hit the particular years. Some utility tax revenues are being adjusted to reflect the amount of money that we're actually bringing in. So the solid waste utility tax, electric utility, and natural gas utilities all are being bumped up, which is a great thing. We're bringing in more revenue in those areas than we anticipated. And then investment earnings, which I continue to talk about, I'm holding that low, not knowing when the interest rates are going to change. They are starting to go down a little bit, but we have a lot of good investments out there at the 3.5 to 4.5%. So we'll have those for a little while, holding us steady.
I think we have a question from Councilmember Lutzis.
Yes, could you refresh my memory? How many of these are restricted revenue streams?
I'm sorry.
How many are sort of, restricted in terms of they were earned by a certain,
This
not
is all
necessarily-
general dollars, so this
They're all
is not
general dollars.
restricted, not
Okay.
this section, yeah.
Not the section.
Not
Okay,
the
thank you.
section, yeah. I'll let you know when it's something else. Okay, so recommended expenditures. These are just some of the large ones. $300,000 in consulting services. We needed to right-size that budget due to staff departures and holes, and increase our use of those consulting services. Police services, I got the estimate for 2026 and it was larger than we anticipated. Plus they added in, gave us an estimate for body worn cameras, which is not in the regular contract amount. So that adjustment of 242 is for 2026. And then there is a request for 180,000 fully loaded position for IT services. So those are the big pieces. The total expenditure increases about $954,000. So again, a net difference of 511,000 to the good.
I have a question from Councilmember Marshall.
Did the new IT proposal include benefits?
Yes.
That 180
Yes.
Annually then?
Yes,
Okay.
annually, fully
Thank you.
loaded annually. Thank you. Mhm.
And then a question I have here is a big chunk of the new or the unanticipated revenue is building permit fees, which are generally one-time sorts of infusions of cash. I'm looking at how we're using them. Are the general consulting services generally one-time? Because the other two are going to be ongoing expenditures.
It varies depending on staffing needs, so it kind of fluctuates. But yeah, there's a need, just because there is so much development, there is a need to supplement with this consulting services. So luckily, they go together usually, right? As development revenues are going up, we have a need for more of those consulting costs.
Okay, thank you.
Moving anymore. Click. I'm gonna get there. Literally not going. Sorry. Okay. 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 So this is just a graphical representation of what I was speaking about, and this shows you before the budget amendments, we have currently a 2-year budget with revenue at 35.08 million and expenditures at 38.16. And these amendments will increase revenues by 1.47 and increase expenditures by 0.95. So you can just kind of see it as comparison to the overall budget. Again, another summary of what's happening. So the new total amended revenues will now be 36.5 million and the total amended expenditures 39.1. The net impact to fund balance. So we're starting out with a fund balance of 7075510, so it's just 7 million. Assuming the current state, this current budget that was adopted, and then revenue adjustments of the 1.5, less expenditure adjustments of 954 to an amended general fund ending fund balance of 7.6. So increasing that just slightly by the 500,000. Okay, other funds. So now we're getting into restricted funds. So this is, and just as a reminder, and I will speak to this, but several of these funds are embedded in the changes are the CIP changes, but there's also other changes, one of which that you will see are changes to investment interest, which is for two reasons, and I'll explain. So this is other funds, and this is the street fund. And so in our street fund, you can see that our original revenue and expenditure budgets are up there on the graph. We are looking at increasing the right-of-way permit fees, 300,000, and investment interest of 40,000. We're looking at increasing expenditures, 100,000 in electric utilities and 160,000 in landscaping and roadway services. So again, those are to right size what's actually happening, how much we're actually spending or earning. With investment interest, there's two things happening. One of which is, as you saw on the other graph, that we're bringing in more investment interest than initially anticipated. I can say that. And then you'll see in some other cases where I'm reducing investment interest, and that is because the accountant and I have worked on right sizing how we allocate the monies. And so there was some things that needed to be addressed in fixing who got how much interest, right? And making it more equitable and correct. So those are adjustments that are making it correct going forward. So you'll see some of that as we go on. Oh, Cape Fund. So let's talk about Cape Fund. As you know, I have been doing a lot of work and have mentioned to you that we're trying to get a really good handle on what is happening in the Cape Fund. So right now, my recommendations have zero impact to the fund overall. So the first thing is a large increase in photo enforcement revenue, which is majority of that is actuals that we've already earned in this year. So we've already earned $1 million more than what we anticipated. So that's a big part of the photo enforcement. And then just 350,000 is for next year increase in the revenues. The expenditures, the court costs. So initially, court costs have been part of the police budget because that's where, you know, most of the activity, we didn't have parking. We didn't have photo enforcement infractions until I first got here. And so all those police costs, all those court costs were part of the police budget. And so then as it got large, again, remember, we don't get the numbers. We didn't get 2024 numbers until this summer. And then we see this big number and we're like, well, this isn't right. Where does this belong? So now that we have this big number and we know where it belongs and we did forecasting, we are forecasting basically $1 million each year, in 2025 and 2026 for those court costs related to what they call parking infractions, but it's photo enforcement. So I had to make a big adjustment there because we never saw that number until and couldn't have a chance to even try to figure out what that number would be until this summer. So that's a new number that's added in. And then to balance things out, we made some reductions in how those dollars get funded. So those dollars are being used to fund, let me make sure I say everything because I wrote it all down. So those dollars are being used to fund salaries and benefits, now the court costs, Vera Mobility, who's the one who owns the cameras, who manages all the activity via the cameras. And then the rest of the budget is going to transportation, street preservation, all those costs go to that. So with the revisions in the budget that I'm showing you, the expenditures will end up being about 3.8 million of what I call hard costs, like to cover courts, salary and benefits, and Vera Mobility. And then there's about just shy of 3 million that will go to transportation, pavement preservation, and all those things. So it's a little heavy on the hard costs that we have to pay, but then we still do have just shy of 3 million that is going, as we said, for the safety of the community in making sure that our streets are safe and whatnot. So I just kind of want to make sure you heard that part of what's going on with CAPE. And as you know, we're looking at adding more locations, the transportables. So that's kind of an unknown revenue source. So we're probably going to make more money than I'm even anticipating here. You know, I don't have any model to follow yet to know how much those transportables might make. Any questions on CAPE?
Councilor Marshall. Was the court costs derived by consulting with the court, or did we just do it based on existing expenses?
No, we get a lot of information from the courts. We get a lot of reports that are hard to follow, I will say. And so we actually hired someone that helped us. She does like annual reporting, and she's a great consultant. Anyway, so she, you know, we spent very little money for her to help us decipher what is happening with all these costs. And she actually is able to whittle it down to an estimated cost per infraction. So it's like $20, our court costs per infraction.
But, and I'm sorry if I missed it, was there any response from the courts, or did you communicate with the courts?
They were part of, not the courts directly, the people who do the accounting related to the courts. So we had lots of Teams meetings and phone calls and whatnot to make sure we were capturing the information correctly.
Accounting people employed by whom?
King County.
Okay, great.
Mhm. Yeah, King County, yes. Yeah, they were very helpful. Yeah, they're just as invested because it's impacting their courts, right? So we're all trying to figure this out together. Okay, transportation capital, these changes are strictly what you already saw on the CIP. So it's just including it now into these adjustments. So nothing new there. Here's one of the examples. So the money that we collect, so the money that we had collected, and now we're just paying off the bonds for the Walkways and Waterways project. It was getting way too much interest allocated to it. I just am fixing it. So that was a decrease in the projected budget. So that's now fixed going forward, but we need to adjust the budget for that purpose. The REIT fund, I needed to decrease the REIT revenue slightly. I needed to decrease the investment interest also for the same reason. The transfer to the public works is because of the lower interest rate that we have, so they don't need as much money. And then the 62,000 transportation capital fund is just an adjustment from the CIP. Park capital, they get a little more investment interest, and then the other changes are due to the CIP. Park impact fee fund. So they, because of development revenues, they're also getting additional monies coming in. So I'm increasing the budget there. And then the increase in the transfer to park capital was part of the CIP. Transportation Impact Fee Fund, again, more revenues coming in related to development fees, and then the transfer to transportation capital is part of the changes within the CIP. All right, the Public Works Operations Center. They get more investment interest, so part of that is an increase in interest, and also they're getting more now. And then we're reducing the transfers because of the lower interest rate. And they also have secured a grant from King County. And then per the CIP, there were multiple decreases happening that you've already seen. All right, surface water, they're getting a little more investment interest. They got an increase in a grant. We're reducing the amount of money going to Public Works because of the interest rates, and they need to increase their management services for the surface water plan. This is the capital fund. The other one was the management fund. This is the capital fund where all the actual capital activities happen. You have seen this, but if I were you, I would say that's a big increase because it looks really big on the graph. And the reason is because we're getting conservation fund money for property acquisition. So I think that was $7 million, and that's offset by some ups and downs. So it's showing us $6 million, 6.6 revenue, but that was the big thing that got added in this year for the CIP. Okay, the salary plan. There's a recommendation to increase the salary plan or the people's wages on January 1st by 2.7%. That is based on the CPIW, which we use every year. And again, effective January 1st. I don't have the schedule here on my slide deck, but you have it in your packet that shows the actual changes to everybody's wages. And then lastly, I mentioned this briefly, but the new position for an IT tech / supervisor position, we're working with the IT assessment consultants to kind of narrow down what that would look like and how much that would cost. So this is a more higher number, than hopefully we can bring that down a little bit from what it might actually cost. But Blackline Consulting, who's our IT assessment consultant, has already noted the need pretty early on in the process that we need additional support. So some of the reasoning is to have that strategic partner to align with our city goals and kind of create a more holistic look at IT instead of it being very disjointed by department. Improve our systems functionality, get some regular staff engagement, and a coordination of projects. Those are just some of the reasons for that. I also want to say that it will alleviate my accountant from having to do IT work that she has no training in. So she's trying to support the city, but has no IT training at all. And I need her as a full-time accountant. That's the conclusion of the presentation portion for the public hearing.
Councilor Marshall?
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask this. On the salary increases, there was the 2.7 CPI that I think was regional. Is that right?
It is, yeah. It's Seattle, Bellevue, King County, something like that, yeah.
Okay, and yet we have budgeted 5% now for it, have we not?
We did budget 5%, which it was good because some of our healthcare costs went up. And so we have some increases in healthcare costs, but they're offset by that differential in the wage adjustment. So I don't need to do an adjustment because all of our salaries and wages are one pot of money. So I don't need to do an adjustment for the healthcare costs because it's offset by the lower anticipated COLA.
So the recommendation is not to have the increases at 2.7 or say 3%, it's to have the 5%?
No, the
No.
recommendation is 2.7%.
It is the
to follow-
recommendation.
Yes,
All
to
right.
follow CPI, but I did budget for 5, not knowing. what-
Okay.
Yeah.
We
that's
would
what
adjust to the two,
Yes, 2.7.
yes, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Councilor McCulver?
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, building on the healthcare question, there's obviously a big federal government shutdown standoff thing happening that people may be aware of. Is our stuff directly affected by that in the way that ACA stuff would be affected, or that's just a completely different animal? I'm seeing
Yeah,
now.
we're not affected,
Cool. Thank you.
thankfully.
Any other questions, comments before we open up the public hearing? All right, seeing none then, I will declare the public hearing open. Hang on a second. Do we have people signed up for the public hearing? No. All right, seeing as we don't have anybody signed up for that public hearing, I will save myself reading the script then, unless there's anybody here who wants to, anybody in person who wants to weigh in. Seeing none, I'll declare that public hearing closed. And we'll move on to our second of our 3 public hearings. Proposed ordinance 250636, property tax levy, presented by Finance Administration Director Melinda Morel, for introduction and public hearing.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. I am here to talk to you about the 2026 regular property tax levy and excess property tax levies. So here is the timeline. Today's November 10th, and you're having the public hearing for the budget amendments and the 2 property taxes. And then I will come back on November 24th for potential adoption of all 3. So annually, the city council must set the regular tax levy. So the way that it works is I start with the prior year levy, and then I'm allowed to increase it, the lower of 1% or the IPD. IPD stands for implicit price deflator. And what is the IPD, you ask? It is the ratio of current dollar gross domestic product to constant dollar GDP for state and local governments. I get this information provided to me from King County. I can also find it in the MRSC. But anyway, we're limited to either the lower of 1% or 2.44 this year. So I do the 1%, and then if there's any banked capacity, which I will speak more to in a minute, then I can add that in. And then we get to add in new construction. So all the new construction that's on the docket, they give us some money for that. And then that gives us our proposed levy for 2026. So what does that look like with real numbers? I will show you in a second. Bank capacity. So if you recall, one of the things that the financial task force had looked at was all the bank capacity that we had, and said you should be collecting your bank capacity and using that, like making sure that you include it. So so we've been doing that. For this year, the available bank capacity is 133,709. In 25, we used 144,000 of bank capacity, and in 24, we used 129,000. So with the proposed levy increase, the 133 of bank capacity will be used, and then this will keep us utilizing our full levy authority, right? We're not leaving anything on the table, if you will. So here's the calculation. Again, the first step, what we levied this year, 6,126,068. 1% increase is 61,000. Bank capacity is 133,709. And then new construction, which is provided to me by King County, is 44,562. So that gets us to a new levy of $6,365,600, and that's an increase of 3.91%. And that is pretty much equivalent to what is in the budget, right, within a few dollars. But that's that's what was budgeted for. Any questions on that calculation? Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 examples. So 3 homeowner examples. One is just at a lower $500,000 level. Then I'm going to show you like the median level for Kenmore, and then a higher level. So you can just see how property taxes play out. So at the $500,000 level in 2024, you can see that in the bar chart on the right. The property tax at that point in time was $424. In 2025, if you escalate the value of the home based on the escalation of the assessed value that I get, that would be now worth $573, and a homeowner would pay $441.72. And then again, if you escalate again, what they're saying it is now, it would be worth $655,000 for the 2026 tax year, and they would pay $459.31. We're trying to show that, people think that it's 1-for-1 as your value goes up, and it's not 1-for-1, right? So the increase that you see going from 24 to 26, each year is about a 4% increase in the property taxes, and the value of the home is increasing by double digits. So how does that work? Well, if you look up above in the chart above, the $500,000 home is being applied a tax rate of 0.8492. In 2025, the value's gone up, but the rate went down to 0.7701, and the same thing again now in 2026. Their home value went up, but the annexation rate, the tax rate, is 0.7011. So it's kind of showing how they're conflicting in how they work, right? They're opposite in how they work. Trying to just give a better visual of how that works. So that's with a lower value home with, I don't think I did that. Did you do that? It's like showing more information. I did not set that up that way, but that's great. So the annexation rate, how does that get calculated? It's basically our property tax divided by the total assessed value for Kenmore, and then times 1,000 to get the number. So that's how you get that annexation rate. So for a home that was valued $821,000 in 2024, which was the midpoint in 2024, that's why I use that. It's the median, sorry. So I use that number, it's the same thing. So then you get to 2025, and the way I calculated it, it says the median is 940, or it says the average actually is 941. The true median in 2025 is 964. So it's right there in the money. And then escalating again to 26 at over $1 million. You can see how the escalation of the property taxes increases at a much lower rate, again, at that 4% rate. That's how that works. And then you can see, again, the annexation rate is how it's calculated, and it's the same situation as far as how it gets allocated. So that's the median home. Let's say you have a $1.5 million home. Again, it doesn't change, right? The amount of property tax that you're paying is increasing at that 4% rate, while your home value is increasing at a double-digit rate. Hopefully that helps people kind of see better how the property taxes work, because I know it's confusing. Here's the distribution. So how much if I have a median value home of $964,000, where does my money go? Because I pay a lot more than $742 to the city of Kenmore. Yes, you do. And here's the breakdown. Most of the money is going to schools, as you would imagine. So North Shore Schools, the State School Fund are the big ones. And then next in line is King County. And then after that, there's a combination of places that get some money, hospitals and libraries and the port. North Shore Fire, then the City of Kenmore operating, Sound Transit gets a little bit of money, and then our Walkways and Waterways bond. So I just want to point out that of all of these, what are there, 8 or 7? I wrote it down here somewhere. Yeah, there's 8. So we are 6, right? We're listed 6. And if we didn't have our Walkways and Waterways, I mean, we'd be, 6 out of 7 on where we collect the taxes out of all the taxing sources. So still pretty low in how much we're collecting compared to the others. Not saying that people aren't paying a lot of taxes, it's just that we're the low ones in the mix. And so a total tax bill on a $964,000 property would be just shy of $9,000. And our portion of that is the 742 plus the 129. Any questions on that chart?
Questions?
Okay, let me go back. And that ends the regular property tax slideshow.
Any questions? All right, so this is, okay, so the next part was the excess levy, next item on the agenda. Okay, great. Well, then I will open the public hearing for this, for proposed ordinance 250636. Do we have anybody signed up to testify? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to testify on the property tax levy? All right, well, seeing none, I'm declaring the public hearing closed. That brings us to our final public hearing of the night, proposed ordinance 250637, excess property tax levy presented by Finance. Well, you're already there.
I'm still here.
We're going to see a lot of you over the next couple weeks.
Yep. Okay, this is a one and done slide. So the Walkways and Waterways bonds were voted on back in 2016 and 2021. And so we have 18.1 million that were issued. We currently have 12.315 outstanding as of 12/31 this year. I want to point out that upon initial issuance of these bonds, it was anticipated that the tax rate would be 0.15 per 1,000 assessed value, and we are actually at 0.12 if you round up, 0.116. So we're assessing at a lower rate than what the bond the residents anticipated and were told. So I just want to make sure that that was pointed out, that we're doing a little better than what we thought for the residents. So I take a look at our bond payment schedule, and for 2026, we will need $1,055,350 to pay what is owed in 2026. And so then I do the calculation, and the property owner will have to pay that 0.116 annexation rate, which will cost them about $112 for a median value home.
Councilor Shebnick.
Yeah, I want to reflect both what you said, which is the rate is lower, but the actual dollar figure on a median house is, I'm quite sure I'm remembering this correctly, is lower than what we said way back in 2016.
Oh, I'm sure. It probably is, yes.
So, yeah, so that is,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Okay.
Well, I declare the public hearing open for proposed ordinance 250637. Do we have anybody signed up? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to testify on this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I'm declaring the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. That brings us to our business agenda. Draft amendments to the Parks, Recreation and Open Space element and Capital Facilities element, presented by Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director Debbie Bent, and Principal Planner Todd Hall, and Consultant Tom Beckwith.
Good evening, Council. Well, I'll give you the punchline of what we're looking for tonight. We're looking for direction on the Park Recreation Open Space element and the Capital Facilities element. So that's the punchline. I'd like to introduce Tom Beckwith, who's with Beckwith Consulting. Tom provided the consultant support in terms of the recommendations for the pros element and the Capital Facilities element. And he's also working with the Planning Commission on the pros plan. So he will be back next year regarding the pros plan and also update of the park impact fee rate study. What I'm going to now is turn it over to Todd to give a very quick overview of where we've been and where we are. And then following that, staff and Tom are here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Council. It did include the presentation from last time in the packet. I don't need to go over it again, but it is here for reference. Just wanted to mention briefly that in your packet, we did include the questions that a few of you posed when we had the Planning Commission here, and Tom provided those responses. He's here tonight, happy to clarify those, and then anything additional you might have on the elements as well as the capital facility projects list. And as Debbie mentioned, we're anticipating to come back in December with, assuming there's no major changes to either one of the elements, we'll have some ordinances with these two elements for adoption. And then the Planning Commission is going to be continuing their conversation with regards to the pros plan itself. That's the more meaty version of this discussion. And we'll bring that to you in the first quarter of 2026. And we'll be looking for adoption of the plan sometime in first quarter, hopefully by February, because our deadline for RCO is at the end of February. So that's where we are today. We're happy to take any questions or follow-up you might need with regards to the questions from the last meeting, or if you have anything additional with regards to the two elements.
Questions? Councilmember Shebnick.
I apologize for not having read it in detail until this week. So I didn't have as much last week. I have a few picky things and then a couple related to the policies. So page 8, there's at line 7, there's a sentence that's disconnected. It's hard to interpret that, so that just kind of clean that one up. It's a big gap right in the middle of a sentence and you can't understand what they're trying to say. Substantive in the orientation section, I think there's a repeated claim at kind of each analysis point that our park levels of service are above peers. And each time that is the tail end of the sentence. And I looked at those figures backward and forwards, and I believe it's the case that that's only if you look at both facilities in and adjacent. So I'm guessing that the NRPA standards are not doing that. So I guess that's maybe a question. And I also had a question about them. I assume those standards are based on in-city, and so that's a question. And are they also just based on city provided? Because we talk a lot throughout this, we talk about in-city, in-city and adjacent, and we talk about city provided and provided by another entity. So, and I just want us to be clearly either comparing apples to apples or explaining why we're not. So I am kind of curious about what those standards are relative to what we were presenting here. You can shed any light on that?
I can go ahead and answer part of
Okay.
your question. Those agencies define it themselves. Some agencies just do in-city that they own. Some agencies include everybody that
okay.
they have access to within their city limits.
Okay,
So that can include school districts where those agencies have agreement with school districts, for example.
okay, so it's a mix.
Whether or not it
Okay.
includes those that are outside but adjacent, that also depends on each agency.
Okay,
So we don't have the
All right.
data to try to separate that.
okay, all right, well, and again, I think that the fundamental point I was trying to make is don't, I think it's quite misleading to finish each subsection with "we exceed the standards," because we don't. And we won't unless we got to that top level. So that, you
Yeah.
know, if we're counting the in and adjacent. So either make that clearer or maybe just leave it out and let the numbers speak for themselves.
But I would want to point out that the benchmarks, not standards, but
Yeah,
benchmarks
the benchmarks,
that
yes.
NRP provides is not the only thing to look at. You're also looking at distribution.
Oh, yes,
Are
I
there
know.
any gaps?
I
And you're
understand.
also looking just at what your own community members value to be what they want to
Absolutely,
provide.
which was my next point. And I
Correct.
think somebody else made that in the audience, and
Okay.
we've also seen a visual of that, which is actually something I think we should include, either the visual or at least somewhere in the document where we explicitly say that our overall vision is based on benchmarks and, you know, and bullet point, you know, community input, you know, values, you know, all of the things, and including leaning into our assets of our community. I mean, we have, you know, not all cities are on a river and a lake, you know, so we may lean into those things because of the geography of our city. So I would just make that super explicit. It seemed like it was maybe there a little bit, but even more explicit.
One of the other limitations with the benchmarks is it's based on the population within the cities that are reporting it. It doesn't indicate who uses it. Your user population can be much bigger than your city population.
Yeah, that's if you have a regional asset, right? Yeah, exactly. There was one table I had a quick question about, page 10, table P8. What does median mean here? It's like the next one down. Yeah, and maybe I was reading this too late, but I was struggling with understanding what, it looks like maybe populations, but I
That's the
wasn't.
population for, remember, the benchmarks, some of them are based on the size of the city population, and then some
Okay.
are based on all the agencies, regardless of size of population that responded.
Okay,
So the median is basically the average number of people that were involved where dog park off-leash areas were, for example, provided.
so like take us one example. So basketball court, I'm just looking at it because it's in the middle. So 84% of cities with a population of at least 7,500 support a basketball court. I mean,
That
how
would
do
be-
you make a sentence out of that just so that we can understand what it's
That
trying
would
to say?
be 84% of all the agencies that responded, regardless of population size. And
Okay.
when we've divided by all the populations that were within agencies that responded, the average number of people per basketball court was 7,501.
Okay. And then the 23,391,
That's just based on your population, the number of basketball courts you had in your city inventory.
gotcha. Okay. That is helpful. Thank you.
Again, those are benchmarks. They don't
I
take into
understand.
account all the other
But
stuff.
that's one piece
Right,
of
right.
creating that overall vision and plan. And I mean, it's an important piece. A couple more things and then I'll be done. Obstacles and opportunities. The very first obstacle talks about, I think they use the word lack of waterfront access. And that was jarring to me. It made me feel like all of what we've done over the last 8 years has not been recognized. And so and of course, yes, in, later in opportunities, you talk about, what we've already done, but it was just so jarring. I'm wondering if we could get maybe some different language, like, for example, incomplete utilization and connection of waterfront assets, or something that, shows that we're partway there. Because it's way better than it was. And I think the level of angst that people have about waterfront access has really changed. And which of course you'll see in the survey, which we don't have yet. But yeah, so I'm hoping maybe we can change that. In opportunities, I would really like us to at least allude to the resource that would be around the perimeter of Lake Point, which we're, kind of actively pursuing, and there's, money being set aside, significant amounts of money being set aside for that. To me, to mention, for example, the waterfront water walk trail, which is just, I love the idea, but all it is an idea compared to where we're at with thinking about Lake Point as an opportunity. I mean, they're like night and day, and then not to mention Lake Point seems like a miss there. And then the 3 policy issues, P216, you talk about vegetation management. I would just add my favorite, which is aquatic weed or vegetation management. I would love that to be included in that policy explicitly. Unless somebody has objections to that. This is the policies are kind of the meat of the stuff here. The rest is background. 413, let me go to the other one that's easier. 711, I think there's just maybe a grammar issue, because there's 2 sentences that are in contradiction with each other. So and they can both be true, but we need some connector word like a however. So yeah. And then the last one is 413. And this may not everybody agree with this, so I just want to highlight it. I found that one to be a little bit jarring. I'm very supportive of people having access to a pool. However, I struggled with calling it out explicitly as a policy. It is just one type of recreational facility, and we don't, have a special policy for every single one. And so it felt a little out of place to me as a policy for 413. Because we're saying that somehow this one is elevated to a policy level and all the others are not. So I would prefer that just be removed. Even though I'm very supportive of the idea.
Are you, sorry, they brought up 413 there. I'm not seeing anything about a pool one.
Oh, is it right next to it?
It's on line
Oh,
20.
okay.
Oh, yeah,
There's a numbering issue. I see that.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, yes, there's 2 413s.
Yep.
Okay. I was
We'll
like,
fix
no, it
that.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The dash version.
yeah.
Thought I was losing my mind for a second.
Sorry.
Okay. Councilor Marshall?
I agree with all the other aspects that Councilmember Shrevenick brought up conscientiously. I would strongly advocate to leave in the explicit pool language.
Councilor Sasson?
Returning to Councilmember Shrevenick's comments in the obstacles regarding the lack of access to waterfront, I would register a similar feeling about lack of safe routes to parks, given how much work we've done with our sidewalks and our bicycle lanes. So reflecting our walkways and waterways commitment, I would like to suggest we change that language as well. And then I'm looking in the answers that Tom generously wrote to our previous questions. And the final comment was a question from Councilmember Lutzis, and Tom's input was that we could incorporate objectives, though goals and policies are meant to be timeless. I would advocate to maintain the timeless quality and not put specific data in them, per your comment about limitations. That make sense? You're making confused faces at me, so.
Oh, I saw that.
I just want to make sure that we're adhering to the more timeless quality of this rather than,
Okay, yeah.
that's all. Thank you.
GMA has two issues in your comprehensive plans and in these plan elements as well. One is that you can't pursue something that's not in the plans. You can't all of a sudden boldly come up with an idea. Well, sometimes it can be literally in the plan. It can be a graphic. It can be a description of a project or whatever. But oftentimes things will come up we just didn't think about, or the properties weren't available, or there weren't something else. And the fallback are your goals and objectives. So if a waterfront property comes up and we didn't see it before and we didn't literally identify it, if your goals say we will pursue waterfront property if and when it becomes available, then you're covered. That's where the real key issue of value, the goals and objectives come.
Councilor Lucis.
Yes, I'd like to respond to that briefly a little bit and talk about my thinking. The conversation last time had to do with those salmon-colored boxes throughout that seemed like some sort of call for action, and they were worded in a way that appeared more like almost like an objective than kind of where they were. And so my suggestion at the time was that a ratio would be more timeless, since you're not holding to specific values or numbers, but instead it's something that can fluctuate and be sought after and aimed for. That's not something necessarily that I'm going to to fight on here, but that's the purpose of ratios is that they should be timeless and can be something that continues on and continues to act as guardrails. And I know in other places in this document we do have ratios. And so I'm a little curious, because if we're going to use them in some places, why not others? And that was just one thing that had stuck out to me. A couple of other things that I had some questions about. Number one is on the bottom of page 7. If you excuse me, I have to scroll back up there. Yes, so at the bottom of page 7, I was a little confused about why this was included. This first paragraph, lines 8 through 11, where it talks about how these standards have not been updated in 20 years and they'll never be updated again. And I was a little confused why we're including information we're not using, because we can include a whole bunch of information we're not going to use. And so why this is here, what value this adds to the document.
You mean the inventory numbers?
Lines 8 through 11, the level of, the right under level
okay.
of service, the standards that no longer are being updated.
Well, I think you could probably eliminate that, because later on we have a fuller description of why they don't do that. It's redundant and it's a little negative, maybe a lot negative.
Thank you. Now jumping down to PE 1.2.3. I believe in the last line, line 18, it should be especially those involving hardscapes instead of involve. P 2.1.7. This one, the wording was a little funny. Identifies resource management agencies such as Rye 8 Salmon Recovery Council partners to steward critical areas. I think there should probably be and other partners to steward critical areas in parks and open spaces or some sort of something there. And then same with the policy right below that, 2.1.8, line 10. I think there should be another, just a grammar thing there. Policy 3.1.4. The use of IE here, so IE means in other words, and so I don't know, does this mean that we're only looking at these two projects or these two locations, excuse me, or are these just examples? Because if they're examples, it should be EG. Or 1.2. A question here is, it says based on level of service analysis, and we, I think are just rewinding a little bit, we talked about how level of service isn't quite used. Is this in referring to like a localized level of service just for Kenmore? Or when it says level of service, is it still referring to the prior organizational, the national standards?
This is Kenmore.
This is Kenmore. Okay, thank you. And then 4.2.2. It's just curious if IE was meant here as well for, in other words, or if these were just example references. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm comfortable with keeping in the policy for a pool that Councilmember Marshall brought up and Shrubnik.
Any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Do you feel like you have what you need?
The comments that you've given us, I would not say are substantive. I'm glancing over at the city attorney. They seem to be largely editorial. They're not adding anything new. In which case then I think we could move to ordinance adoption on December 8th without the need for a public hearing. So with that being said, that's what we will do. We will address these comments in a revised ordinance that will be on your December 8th agenda.
Oh, well, I mean,
But perhaps it would be clear if you could make a motion to say just that. Request moving forward to a public hearing incorporating the edits suggested by council this evening.
yeah, I guess Councilmember Sherman was just pointing out that it doesn't sound like we have consensus one way or the other on the pool question on that particular thing. Do we want to do just a quick raise of hands on keeping, well, I guess the question is not keeping, the question is eliminating. So thumbs up if you want to eliminate the policy that, that'd be great.
413.
But the dash one.
We'll correct the numbering, but I believe that was the second 413.
Yes, correct.
And Todd's just about to pull it up for you.
And again,
Perhaps the
just
city
to
clerk could,
clarify,
assist.
it's not, it's not for lack of agreement with the policy. It's that it is called out in isolation and none of the other things are.
All right. So we have the policy in question highlighted in front of us. Why don't we just see folks, just thumbs up if you want to eliminate this particular policy. Okay, I'm not seeing consensus there, so that one stays in. Other than that, do you wish that we have a motion to bring it back on the 8th, or do you have direction as is?
I do have direction, but it's always nice to have a motion to be clear that that is the direction.
Okay, so just to be clear, what you're requesting is a motion to take the edits that we have currently and to bring that into ordinance form and bring that back to council on the 8th of December. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion for what I just said.
So moved.
Sorry, I apologize to the clerk ahead of time. All right, so just to clarify, the motion is to bring back on the 8th an ordinance that folds in the edits that were discussed earlier. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously. We will see you on the 8th. Thank you very much. And that brings us to staff reports. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we wanted to highlight something that has been, I think, on many people's minds, which is the provision of SNAP benefits to individuals both across the country, but more importantly, in our community. And I just wanted to highlight that according to a statement from Governor Ferguson on Friday, November 7th, all households scheduled to receive SNAP benefits between November 1st and November 7th have received 100% of their benefits for November. All other households are expected to receive their full November benefit on the date it is typically issued. However, we know this remains a dynamic situation that's continuing to play out. And I wanted to highlight for you that our Human Services Manager has stayed in tight connection with agencies that provide food in our community should anyone be in need. HopeLink, we contract with directly for food services, and the North Shore Senior Center, it is part of the portfolio that they also provide to our community. What we are hearing from both of them is that they prefer that people give donations directly to them in cash format. They're able to leverage that with their significant purchasing power and in buying in bulk. The other thing is they tend to buy the items that are in demand and most helpful to people who are seeking food. So we've provided the QR codes as well as the link should anyone be looking for how to get resources to those firms. And note that we also have some money set aside that if this continues to drag out, we have some other dollars in the piggy bank that we could go back and contract with HopeLink and North Shore a little bit more fully as well.
Fantastic.
That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember reports and comments. Councilmember Culver.
Happy Monday.
Councilmember Marshall.
Thanks to our veterans in your family and in my family and in Kenmore in our country.
Councilmember Sassen.
Well said, Councilmember. I appreciate that. I wonder if we could have that slide, that Help Nourish Kenmore slide, made available to us in our email so we can distribute it. That'd be great. I'm sure it's on the website, yes?
If it's not on the website, we can certainly put it there. It's also in the weekly that just went out this afternoon.
Great. I was looking in the weekly and it didn't pop up for me, so I appreciate that. I can find it there.
Thank you.
That's fine. I wanted to address the issue of the resident who has now left regarding her concerns, but maybe. we have conversations
Yeah.
happening and we have plans to further those, but I can't remember where they are on our agenda.
Yeah,
So
I
I'll
think we
pass that
actually are
along.
having one of those discussions next week. We have something on the consent, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get pulled off of there. But yeah, we do have something on consent for next week around some of this, I think. I'm going off memory from agendas I approved on Friday, so. And I'm really tired right now, so I could be off. Councilor Shrubnik.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight that exact point that I think next week, I didn't realize it was on consent. I was thinking we'd actually talk about it a little bit. But yeah, we have a resolution related to immigrant rights that I think we're looking at, and educating businesses. And then I think on the 24th, I think, Chief Mullen is coming and we'll have some information about our public safety response kind of around those same issues. So both of the next 2 weeks are great opportunities to hear about how the city is in a small way trying to address the concerns that were raised.
Councilor Lutzis.
Yes. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilmember Marshall. Happy Veterans Day, and thank you to all those who have served. Additionally, I want to take a moment quickly to address one of the public comments we had earlier from Brian about allowing Lime bikes in the city. And I know at least I have asked multiple times about why that is, why we don't. And I believe, if I recall correctly, it's because it's Lime Bike themselves who says that they don't think that there's enough service here to open up our jurisdiction, that it wouldn't be financially, beneficial for them to do so. That's just to say that we have not, that it's not that we have not been trying. It's just that there's some other hindrance not on our end, but it is something that I hope in the future that we can continue to pursue and check in on, and hopefully maybe explore that, because I think multimodal transportation, especially something accessible like that, is really important for our community. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I have one that I'll call it on a lighter note. I was at the hangar on Sunday, getting coffee at Diva Espresso, and I noticed we had community members there with dogs, which I think is great. And it was a reminder, and I spoke to people about it, not only people in line, people who worked at Diva Espresso, about what would you think if this were a dog-friendly facility where people could come in with their dogs and not feel like they're going to get shooed out? Our relationships with dogs over the past, my lifetime, but I'd say even the past 20 years, more people have dogs, more people have them with them. And they're like a member of people's families. And the dogs that I saw sneaking into the hangar were very well behaved. And so I'd love Kenmore to be a dog-friendly city and find a way to make it okay for people with dogs to sit and enjoy their coffee at the hangar. So I'm not sure how to go about getting research or us finding a path forward. I know that cities like Kirkland have restaurants like Moss Bay Hall, where it's a dog-friendly restaurant where you can take the dogs in. There's no problem. And there are other places that I've been to in Kirkland where it seems like dogs have access, and I love access for dogs. So I have a feeling there's plenty in our community that would enjoy that, and I'm not sure if this is something that we would like staff maybe to do some research for us to maybe make a decision about. But anyway, I just want to bring it up. I'd love for our community members to be able to bring their dogs into the hangar and enjoy their coffee there. So just want to bring that up. That's it. So happy Monday. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, yeah, I did just confirm, we do have a proposed resolution on next week's meeting. affirming our support for immigrants and the rights of all residents and endorsing state laws that promote safety and equity. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets pulled off consent, but that's just where it got sat. And then to Councilmember Lutz's comment and our online person, actually had coffee with a representative from Lyme a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, I can't remember. And we had a conversation, and they are actually eager to kind of close the hole between Bothell and Seattle. I don't know where Lake Forest Park is, but that was actually on my list of things to bring up at a retreat to have a conversation about that. So they want to be here. We just need to figure out A, if we want them, and B, how we make that work. So anyway, yeah, no problem. And with nothing more to come before us, we are adjourned.